I'd never imagined I'd get invited to one of Diddy's legendary white parties. Yet there I was, on a humid August night in East Hampton, my heart pounding as I approached the lavish mansion by the sea. I'd scored a last-minute +1 from a friend of a friend. A total stroke of luck. Everyone said these parties were glamorous, star-studded, and strictly all-white attire. I spent a fortune on a crisp white linen suit and leather loafers. As I stepped onto the manicured lawn, I struggled to contain my excitement and nerves. The party sprawled across an expansive estate, a pool shimmering under lanterns, a DJ spinning smooth tunes, and clusters of beautiful people laughing beneath sculpted hedges. The smell of jasmine and expensive perfume filled the air. Waiters in white suits glided by with champagne flutes. It felt like stepping into a magazine spread. Everyone so elegant, smiling. Yet I sensed a certain tension beneath the surface. Maybe it was my imagination. After all, I was an outsider peering into a world of fame and wealth. I arrived with Tanya, the acquaintance who gifted me the +1. She knew some of the industry folks, or so she claimed. I'd met her only twice before, but she seemed confident, delighted to show me around. The arrangement was simple. I'd come as her guest, we'd mingle, and I'd quietly appreciate the scene. Tanya wore a white silk dress that hugged her figure, turning heads as we passed. I felt safe at her side. We grabbed drinks and strolled among clusters of guests. Stars and influencers flashed perfect smiles. Beyond the pool area, a garden led to a quiet corner with a small bar and cabanas. As we approached that quieter section, Tanya spotted someone she recognized. An executive, she said, and told me to wait a moment while she said hello. She left me near a tall hedge, promising to return in 5 minutes. I waited, sipping champagne. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Tanya didn't return. I wandered a bit, trying not to look lost. I circled around the garden, scanning for her white silhouette. Nothing. I texted her. "Where are you?" No answer. I tried calling straight to voicemail. My chest tightened with worry. Maybe she got caught up in conversation, or her phone died. I decided to find that executive she mentioned. Maybe he'd seen her. The mansion's interior might hold answers. I slipped inside through French doors. The interior was all white decor, modern and sleek. Guests lounged on white sofas, sipping cocktails. I moved from room to room, trying to appear casual. Still no sign of Tanya. I asked a couple of guests if they'd seen a woman in a white silk dress with long dark hair. They shook their heads politely, eyes drifting away as if I were a bother. Panic gnawed at me. Without Tanya, I had no anchor here. I felt distinctly out of place. The party had many security guards, also dressed in white, discreet earpieces in their ears. I approached one guard, explained I lost my friend. He gave me a mild, professional smile and said, "Don't worry. These parties are big. She's probably chatting with someone or stepped out for a call." His tone suggested I shouldn't bother him further. Fine. I backed off, trying a different tactic. Outside, near the cabanas, I found a waiter and asked if he'd seen Tanya. He paused, then said, "I remember a woman like that going toward the side gate. About 20 minutes ago." Side gate? Why would Tanya head that way alone? I hurried along a gravel path lit by soft ground lights, leading away from the main crowd. The laughter and music faded behind me. The path ended at a side gate in a tall hedge. It was ajar, opening onto a dark stretch of lawn. Beyond, I saw the silhouette of a small utility shed. My heart thumped. This was too far from the party's core. Why come here? I called out softly, "Tanya?" No response. My mind raced with grim possibilities. Robbery? Abduction? Had someone lured her away? I crept forward. The silence pressed in. The distant thump of music barely reached here. I tried her phone again, no luck. Steeling myself, I approached the shed. Its door was slightly open. Inside, a single bulb cast harsh light on cleaning supplies and folded chairs. Empty. Not a trace of her. I checked behind the shed, just a fence and darkness beyond. With dread, I realized something bad could have happened. Who would know? This party was huge, people coming and going. I decided I had to tell security more forcefully. They had to take me seriously. I rushed back, forcing calm. Inside the house again, I cornered a different security guard. "I can't find my friend," I said, voice shaking. "I've searched everywhere. I'm worried." The guard frowned, perhaps reading the panic in my eyes. He asked my friend's name and description, radioed something quietly. "Wait here," he said. I waited by a marble staircase, feeling eyes on me. Suspicious glances, as if I was causing trouble. After a few minutes, a man in a white blazer approached. Not a guard, but he had authority in his posture. "You're looking for your companion, Tanya?" he asked softly. I nodded, relieved. He gestured for me to follow him upstairs to a private lounge. Maybe they'd found her. Once there, he said calmly, "We have to keep the party's ambience. We'll do a discreet search." His tone was kind but firm, implying I shouldn't cause a scene. I insisted on helping. He refused, stating, "We have staff. Stay here, enjoy a drink. We'll find her." I felt trapped. If I refused, would they kick me out? I didn't belong here, and I needed their help. So I forced a thin smile and agreed. He left, closing the door. In that lounge, only a handful of guests sat, chatting quietly. Time crawled. My chest tightened with each passing minute. Finally, I dared to slip out and continue the search myself. Couldn't just sit and wait. Down a hallway, I found a service corridor. Perhaps Tanya ended up somewhere off-limits? I moved quietly, heart pounding. The corridor led to a kitchen area, bustling with catering staff. I scanned each face, but no Tanya. Another hall, emptier, led to what seemed like an office. The door was closed. I pressed my ear against it. Muffled voices, maybe? Footsteps approached from behind. I spun around. It was the man in the white blazer, face stern now. "Sir, you should not be here," he said, voice low. "We told you to wait." I swallowed hard. "I'm scared. My friend is missing. Something's wrong." He stepped closer, invading my personal space. These parties are known for privacy. Guests value discretion. We don't want chaos. His words chilled me. Privacy over safety. I gathered my nerve. "I'm calling the police," I said, pulling out my phone. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist lightly, not violent, but threatening. "Don't do that. We're handling it." My heart lurched. This was beyond suspicious. I yanked my arm free. He sighed, resigned. "Fine. If you must, go outside and call. Just not here." I rushed away, feeling eyes on my back. Outside on the lawn, I dialed 911. I explained in hushed tones, "I'm at this white party. My friend vanished. I fear foul play." The operator said they'd send a unit, but given the private nature of the event, might take time. I felt tears burning my eyes. This was supposed to be a glamorous night. Minutes later, as I paced near the edges of the party, I spotted a figure at the far end of the garden. My heart leapt. Was it Tanya? I hurried over. Drawing closer, I saw a woman in white slumped on a stone bench. Relief surged. "Tanya!" I whispered. She looked up slowly. It was her, eyes red, mascara streaked. She looked shaken, disoriented. I kneeled beside her. "Oh my God! What happened?" She swallowed, voice trembling. I followed someone who said they had VIP passes to show me. Then, they cornered me near that side gate, took my phone, threatened me. My stomach twisted. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "They made me promise not to tell anyone. Just gave my phone back after deleting some messages. I got away when they got distracted." She looked terrified. I hugged her tight. "We're leaving right now," I said. She nodded, tears falling. I had no idea who these people were or what their goal was. Maybe extortion, maybe worse. But we had to go. We skirted the main party, slipping through the crowds. The atmosphere still shimmered with laughter and clinking glasses. oblivious to the horror we experienced. By the time police arrived outside the estate, we were at the entrance, flagging them down. We told them what happened. The officers seemed skeptical. So much was hearsay, no solid evidence. Tanya just wanted to leave. They said they'd check around, but the party was full of VIPs and intense privacy rules. Without a clear complaint or ID of the suspects, this might go nowhere. We took a taxi away, hearts still pounding. Tanya sobbed quietly, feeling violated and foolish for trusting a stranger's VIP promise. I berated myself for not insisting on leaving sooner. The night ended with us huddled in a cheap motel room, doors bolted, lights on. We tried to comfort each other, but fear lingered. This taught me a grim lesson. Even at a star-studded, glamorous white party hosted by a mogul like Diddy, danger can lurk in the shadows. Behind the white attire and polished smiles, some guests hide sinister intentions. We were lucky Tanya escaped. Others might not be so fortunate. I still can't listen to music from that night or think of the party without a chill. We learned the hard way that exclusivity and glamour can mask threats, and that trust should not be given so freely. We're just grateful we left alive, vowing never again to attend such an event without a tight circle of friends and a keen sense of caution. The private room in Miami. I never expected to find myself at one of Diddy's legendary white parties, especially not in a city as glamorous as Miami. But there I was, one late December night, having somehow scored an invite through a friend who worked in fashion PR. She couldn't make it, some emergency back home, so she handed me her invitation. "Enjoy it for me," she said. "Just be careful. These parties aren't just fun and games." I laughed it off, too excited to worry. Who would imagine danger lurking at such a chic event? The party took place at a private oceanfront mansion in Miami Beach. The instructions were explicit. All white attire, no exceptions. I wore white linen pants, a matching blazer, and loafers. The entrance was a vision of elegance. White curtains billowing in the evening breeze, soft lighting reflecting off polished marble floors. Music pulsed lightly, and guests sipped champagne in manicured gardens. Everywhere I looked, beautiful people posed for photos beneath trellises of white flowers. I knew no one here, but I tried to blend in, grabbing a flute of champagne from a waiter's tray and smiling politely at strangers. My plan was simple: admire the scene, enjoy some free food, maybe chat with someone interesting. I drifted toward a lounge area by the pool, where clusters of guests reclined on white cushioned chairs. The conversation around me sounded friendly, if somewhat superficial, all about recent business deals, brand collaborations, and who arrived with whom. About half an hour in, I noticed a small commotion at the mansion's side entrance. A woman, also dressed in white, was whispering urgently to a staff member. The staffer nodded and disappeared inside. The woman looked stressed, glancing around as if searching for someone. I considered approaching to ask if she needed help, but I hesitated. Maybe it was none of my business. After a moment, she followed the staffer inside, her long white dress trailing behind her. Something about her anxious face stuck in my mind. I wandered inside the mansion, drawn by curiosity. The interiors were stunning. White decor, modern art, soft ambient music. Guests drifted in and out of rooms. I passed a couple engaged in a tense, hushed argument, but looked away, not wanting to pry. In a hallway near the back, I caught a glimpse of the same worried woman talking to another guest, a tall man in a crisp white suit. She seemed to plead with him, and he shook his head grimly. When she noticed me looking, she paused and forced a smile. I felt awkward and moved on, pretending to examine a nearby sculpture. A few minutes later, a waiter passed by with appetizers. I asked him quietly if everything was okay. He seemed puzzled. "I'm sure everything's fine, sir," he said diplomatically. This was a place of discretion. I realized people didn't ask questions here. Privacy was paramount. Back in the main lounge, I settled on a white sofa, nibbling on a canopy. Another guest sat nearby, a middle-aged woman with a polite smile. We chatted about the decor, the music, and then I ventured. I saw a woman inside, looked upset. "Any idea what happened?" The guest's smile faltered. "I wouldn't worry. Sometimes people get overwhelmed. These parties have their secrets. She said it lightly, but a nervous undertone lingered. Secrets? That intrigued me and put me on edge. I decided to follow my gut and investigate discreetly. Maybe I was just bored, looking for a story to tell friends later. I returned inside, drifting through side rooms. In one room, a small group laughed loudly. In another, two guests engaged in serious business talk. Eventually, I found a corridor guarded by a staff member. He stood by a closed door and politely told me it was a private area. I apologized and retreated, but I couldn't shake the feeling that behind that door something was off. The mansion was large enough for private business deals, VIP negotiations, or even darker encounters. The idea unsettled me. Circled back outside to the garden. The night air felt heavy, scented with salt and distant jasmine. I spotted the anxious woman again, now standing alone by a white gazebo. I approached slowly. "Excuse me, I don't mean to intrude," I said softly, "but you seem upset. Are you okay?" She looked startled, her eyes darting around. After a moment, she sighed and said, "I'm looking for my friend. She was supposed to meet me here, but I can't find her. No one's helping." Her voice trembled. I asked what her friend looked like. She described a young woman in a white jumpsuit, wavy dark hair, supposed to arrive early. The friend disappeared after stepping inside the mansion. I felt a pang of empathy. This reminded me of stories I'd heard. Exclusive parties where someone goes missing, rumors never confirmed. "Have you tried asking security?" I asked. She nodded, frustrated. "They brush me off. They say she left, but I know she wouldn't leave without telling me." I offered to help search. She looked relieved, but cautious. We introduced ourselves. Her name was Naomi. We agreed to quietly check some spots. Naomi said her friend mentioned a private meeting room where certain VIPs gathered. Maybe she got invited there? We slipped back inside, careful not to attract attention. The corridor with the guard still intrigued me. As we approached, the guard was gone. The door was partially open now. Heart pounding, we sneaked closer. Inside, a dimly lit room revealed a long table, a few empty chairs, and a feeling of tension in the air. No one inside now. I whispered to Naomi, could she have been brought here? We stepped in, ears tuned for footsteps. A faint rustle made us freeze. A small side door in the room led to another hallway. Naomi checked her phone repeatedly. No messages from her friend. We advanced toward the side door. Locked. We pressed our ears against it, voices murmuring softly on the other side. Couldn't catch the words. Naomi's eyes were wide with fear. We had no business being here. If we got caught, who knew how they'd react? But her friend was missing, and no one else cared. I tried the handle again, no luck. Naomi whispered, "We must find another way around." We retreated back into the main mansion, trying a different route. Time felt like it was slipping away. The music outside remained cheerful, laughter drifting in from the pool area. I marveled at the contrast. A perfect party facade, while somewhere inside, someone might be in trouble. We found a staircase off a side hall. Upstairs might provide a vantage point. On the second floor, fewer guests roamed, mostly staff or VIPs. Most doors were closed. Through one open door, I glimpsed a guest pacing, talking quietly on a phone. He noticed us, frowned, and closed the door. Suspicion prickled at my neck. We came upon a hallway with large windows overlooking the garden. At its end, a single white door stood ajar. Inside, a small office with floor-to-ceiling curtains. We entered cautiously and found a second door that might link to that secret area below. Before we could test it, we heard footsteps approaching. We hid behind the curtains, hearts pounding. Two men entered, speaking softly. "She wouldn't keep quiet," said one. We had to remove her phone, make sure no recordings. My blood ran cold. Naomi gripped my arm. They talked about getting rid of problems and avoiding a scene. My stomach lurched. These were not casual partygoers. This sounded like dangerous people ensuring silence. They mentioned a girl in white jumpsuit, Naomi's friend. This was bad. They said something about escorting her out a back exit and warning her never to talk. My mind raced. At least they didn't say they harmed her. Maybe we could still save her. The men left. We slipped out quietly and followed their direction, guessing the back exit's location. On the ground floor, near a staff-only corridor, we found a door leading out to a narrow courtyard. Dimly lit, it smelled of damp earth and salt air. There, near a service gate, stood Naomi's friend, looking shaken but unharmed, guarded by a stern-faced staffer in white attire. The staffer spoke curtly, "Delete everything, then go. If you talk to anyone, we'll know." The friend nodded tearfully, clutching her phone. The staffer stepped away, and we took the chance to rush forward. The friend gasped, relieved at seeing Naomi. The staffer turned, startled to find us there. I raised my voice, "We're leaving now. Don't try stopping us." The staffer hesitated, eyeing us, possibly assessing if a scene would draw attention. The music still thumped from afar, guests oblivious to our standoff. Naomi's friend whispered. They took me aside, questioned me about who invited me, said I recorded something I shouldn't have. She sobbed. Without waiting, we guided her toward a gap in the hedge leading to a side street. The staffer followed a few steps, but when I glared and raised my phone to show I could call the police, he retreated, muttering curses under his breath. We emerged onto a quiet street. The party's glow faded behind high walls. The three of us quickly called a rideshare. My hands shook as I tried to order the car. In the back seat of a quiet sedan, we left that mansion behind, hearts thumping, each of us struggling to process what happened. In the end, no one would believe us if we talked publicly. A place like that party, full of influential guests, would deny any wrongdoing. They rely on silence, on intimidation. Naomi's friends said they forced her to delete photos or videos she took. She was just curious, filming a hallway, and stumbled on something secret, conversations or deals they didn't want recorded. That night taught me that behind the white dress code, shimmering lights, and celebrity names, darker currents flow. Power can silence dissent, scare outsiders, and hide secrets behind locked doors. We escaped physically unharmed, but deeply rattled. I'll never forget the tension in that back courtyard, the fear in Naomi's eyes, the relief when we finally got away. We never spoke of it publicly. Who would listen and at what cost? But I share this story quietly to warn others. Those glamorous scenes can conceal ruthless agendas. Next time someone brags about attending a famous white party, I'll recall the hush, the locked doors, and the pleas for silence. In a world like that, trust is scarce and safety never guaranteed. The parking lot in Aspen. I never thought I'd find myself at one of Diddy's famous white parties in Aspen, of all places. Yet, somehow, through a series of lucky coincidences, I ended up on the guest list. It was held during ski season, a glamorous, star-studded event high in the snowy mountains. Everyone wore chic winter whites, faux fur coats, woolen hats, pristine boots, all in pristine shades of ivory and cream. I'd borrowed a friend's white parka and pants, not nearly as fashionable as the celebrities and influencers around me, but I hoped no one would notice. The party took place at a private chalet near the slopes. Outside, golden lights twinkled on snow-covered trees. Inside, fireplaces crackled, guests sipped champagne, and a DJ spun mellow tunes that drifted through softly lit rooms. I knew almost no one there. My invitation came through a distant acquaintance who worked in PR. She told me, "Don't draw attention, just enjoy the atmosphere." I planned to do exactly that. As I wandered through the chalet, admiring the decor, I recognized a few familiar faces from TV, though I dared not approach them. Instead, I fetched a glass of sparkling wine and found a quiet corner near a window, watching guests mingle and laugh. The vibe felt exclusive but mostly friendly. Still, an undercurrent of tension hummed beneath the surface. Maybe it was just me feeling like an outsider. An hour into the party, I stepped onto the balcony to get some fresh air. I wasn't used to high-profile events, and the packed rooms felt suffocating at times. On the balcony, I ran into a young woman in a white ski jacket, looking upset. She rubbed her arms for warmth, staring down at the distant lights of Aspen below. "Are you okay?" I asked gently. She turned, startled, and forced a smile. "I'm fine," she said too quickly. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. I hesitated, unsure if I should press. She glanced back inside and lowered her voice. "Just be careful who you trust here. Not everyone is who they seem." With that cryptic warning, she slipped inside again. I was left uneasy, questions swirling in my head. Not long after, I decided to grab my coat from the cloakroom and step outside for a breather. The cloakroom was near the front entrance. As I crossed the main hall, I spotted a man who'd been standing near me earlier, back when I was at the window. He wore a white beanie, a puffer jacket, and had a tense, watchful gaze. He seemed to notice me at the same time, nodding slightly, as if acknowledging a silent understanding. I found it strange. Why acknowledge me, a stranger, at all? I got my coat and ventured outside to the front driveway. The night sky in Aspen was clear, stars bright above. A few luxury cars sat parked along the snow-packed lot. I wanted fresh air and quiet. The music thumped softly through the chalet walls. I strolled a bit further down the lot, careful not to slip on icy patches. A security guard stood near the gates, maintaining order. As I considered heading back inside, I noticed someone else in the parking area. A tall figure in white snow pants and a jacket, pacing behind a black SUV. Curious but cautious, I approached slowly. Maybe they lost something. But as I got closer, I recognized the man with the beanie. He was on his phone, talking in hushed, urgent tones, occasionally glancing toward the chalet. I couldn't hear his exact words. When he spotted me, he ended the call abruptly. "Looking for something?" he asked, tone neutral. I forced a half smile. "Just getting fresh air," I said. He nodded. The tension felt thick. I noticed he stood beside a second white jacket draped over the SUV's hood. Something dark, maybe a stain, marred its otherwise perfect whiteness. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. He stepped closer, blocking my view. "I'd go back inside if I were you," he said quietly. No smile now, just cold eyes. My pulse quickened. Why was he trying to send me away? "I'm fine out here," I replied, attempting confidence. He didn't move, just stared me down. I realized, with a sinking feeling, that the girl's warning might have been about people like him. Maybe I stumbled onto something I shouldn't see. "I don't think you belong here," he said. A statement, not a question. I swallowed. "I was invited," I managed. He tilted his head, as if unimpressed. "These parties are private. We value discretion," he murmured. There was that word again, discretion. I'd heard rumors that at these exclusive gatherings, deals are made, secrets exchanged. Maybe I was witnessing something of that sort. I considered leaving immediately, but my curiosity nagged at me. Before I could retreat, the sound of distant chatter echoed from the gate. Another guest wandered outside, maybe looking for a ride. The man stiffened, then hissed at me, "Go inside. Now!" This time I didn't argue. I turned and walked briskly back to the chalet's entrance, heart pounding. Inside, I scanned the crowd, looking for anyone who might help if things went south. Security guards hovered discreetly, but they seemed more like decorations than actual protectors. I found the girl I'd seen on the balcony earlier. She was standing near a fireplace, arms folded, looking tense. I approached her again. "Something strange is happening outside," I said quietly. She looked alarmed. "Did you see anything?" she asked. "I'm not sure," I confessed. A man near the SUVs, acting hostile, told me to go inside. She sighed, eyes darting around. "I lost track of my friend earlier. She went out for a smoke, never came back." When I asked questions, people brushed me off. My chest tightened, another missing person scenario. We'd both noticed odd behavior, warnings, people disappearing. We considered telling security. She warned me that might not help. They might be in on it. "Just look at them. They maintain order, but at whose expense?" she said. I doubted everyone was corrupt, but who knew? We decided to leave. Better to escape this uneasy atmosphere than risk more trouble. She needed her coat first. We moved toward the cloakroom, navigating through a hallway where fewer guests lingered. The music from the main room muffled behind closed doors. I spotted a staff-only sign near a side door. The girl paused, saying, "Maybe I should just go with what I'm wearing." She wore a white shawl over a thin dress, clearly insufficient for the cold. "No, let's get your coat properly," I insisted. At the cloakroom, a tall attendant asked our numbers. The girl gave hers, and he went to fetch the coat. As we waited, that same man from the parking lot strolled by casually. He noticed us and paused mid-stride. My nerves ignited. He smirked, then slipped behind a column. Anxiety swelled inside me. He wasn't giving up easily. The attendant returned with the girl's coat. We thanked him and hurried back to the main hall, aiming straight for the front entrance. Crowds still mingled, laughter and clinking glasses painting a perfect facade. We pushed through. A staff member at the door smiled. "Leaving already?" We nodded politely, "Yes, thank you." Outside, cold air hit our faces. We stood at the top of the driveway. I said, "We should call a rideshare fast." She agreed, pulling out her phone. I kept watch. The man might be lurking behind the cars. I spotted movement near a hedge, just a servant adjusting a lantern. I hoped. A long moment passed as she struggled with weak signal. Finally, a car accepted our request, arriving in about 10 minutes. 10 minutes felt like an eternity. We stepped further down the driveway, closer to the main road, where passing headlights provided some comfort. Headlights approached, not our car yet. Another guest's vehicle leaving? It slowed oddly as it passed us. Inside, silhouettes. I held my breath, but it continued down the road, disappearing. The silence of the surrounding property pressed in. The party's glow behind us felt both near and distant. We heard a rustle in the bushes to our left. My heart lurched. Was he trying to corner us here, away from the main crowd? The girl stiffened, whispering, "Let's move closer to the guard at the gate." Good idea. We headed toward the gatehouse, a simple structure with a uniformed guard inside. The guard gave us a curious look as we approached. "Everything okay?" he asked, tone neutral. I decided to be honest. Someone's been acting strange, following us. We're waiting for our ride. The guard's expression turned careful. "This is a private event. Are you guests?" We confirmed. He nodded slowly. "Wait here, you'll be safe," he said calmly, his hand drifting near his radio. Relief washed over me. At least someone in authority would watch over us now. We waited under the guard's watchful eye. The party continued behind us, muffled and distant. After a few tense minutes, our rideshare car arrived, headlights bright. The guard nodded as we climbed in. The driver asked if we had a good time at the event. I forced a laugh. Let's just say it was an experience. As we drove away, I caught a final glimpse of the mansion's silhouette, warm lights against a dark sky. I thought about the man in the parking lot, his smirk, his hostility, and the strange tension inside. The girl next to me, her name was Maya, I learned, shook her head softly. I knew these parties had secrets, but I never thought I'd feel so unsafe. We agreed to say nothing publicly. Who would believe us or care? The wealthy protect their own. We were lucky to escape with no real harm. Others might not be so fortunate. The fear we felt, the subtle threats and dismissed pleas, painted a picture of an elite world where appearances matter more than truth. That night taught me that even at a dazzling white party by the ocean, danger can lurk in the shadows. Suspicious figures controlling who sees what, intimidating anyone who stumbles into their orbit. We left with a lesson learned. Never assume glamour equals safety. Never trust a crowd of strangers with our well-being. I share this story to remind others that behind the beauty, fame, and wealth, darker games might be at play. If I ever find myself invited to another such event, I'll think twice. Better to admire from afar than risk entanglement in secrets and threats hidden under the veneer of elegance. We rode off into the Miami night, hearts still pounding. Neither of us attended such exclusive parties again. It's just not worth the risk.